For decades, he wrote about the Armenian genocide, carried out by the Ottoman Turks during the First World War. He would publicize long-lost diaries and documents about the mass slaughter of an estimated 1.5 million Armenians, stories other correspondents felt were far from the conventional news agenda and better left to historians. But Robert was more than a journalist cataloguing present-day developments and woes. He was a historian as well as a reporter, who wrote, among many other books, The Great War for Civilisation, The Conquest of the Middle East, and now The Night of Power, The Betrayal of the Middle East. I never finished my PhD in Belfast because the violence became too intense for academic work. But Robert did get his doctorate from Trinity College Dublin for his thesis on Irish neutrality in the Second World War. He was more than a person who covered the news, since his journalism, for all his scoops and revelations, had such depth. He was, in the truest sense, a historian of the present. Robert combined a journalist's skills as an eyewitness recording and interpreting events with a historian's ability to place them in a broader context and longer time frame. His books avoid the failing of many of even the best academic histories, which is that the author largely knows what happens second-hand. The weakness of journalism is the precise opposite. The reporter focuses exclusively on what he or she witnesses in front of them, ignoring or minimizing the significance of what they do not see, but which is of equal or greater significance. By its very nature, journalism dilutes the truth, not just through proprietorial or editorial bias, though that is important, but because shortage of space and the need to appeal to a wide audience necessitate oversimplification. Yet the real life of peoples and countries is complicated. All the arrows never point conveniently in the same direction, and what appears in the media will, at best, be a well-informed synopsis of events. Only through books such as this can the complex but invariably fascinating reality be accessed. The great American journalist Seymour Hersh once told me, "When people ask me how to begin an investigation, I always say to them, read, read, read." Robert was a magnificent reporter who bubbled with nervous energy, often shifting his weight from one foot to the other, notebook in hand, as he questioned eyewitnesses relentlessly and probed into what had really occurred. He took nothing for granted and was openly contemptuous of those who did. He did not invent the old journalistic saying, "Never believe anything until it is officially denied," but he fully agreed with its skeptical message. He was suspicious of reporters who cultivated diplomats and official sources that could not be named, and whose likely partisan bias was unmentioned, but whose veracity we were invited to take on trust. Some journalists responded to Robert's criticism with baffled resentment. During the US-led counter-invasion of Kuwait in 1991, one embedded American journalist complained that Robert was unfairly reporting on events about which information should have been confined to an officially sanctioned pool of correspondence. Another US journalist based in London in the early 1980s told me that he considered Robert to be a brilliant writer and the best reporter he'd ever known, but he had been struck by the number of his colleagues who grimaced at Robert's name. "I've thought about this," he said, "and I think that 80% of the reason for this is pure envy on their part. Truly hell hath no fury like a reporter scooped, let alone one who has been regularly scooped." Robert did this again and again over half a century, so it's scarcely surprising that rival journalists often nurtured bitter and resentful feelings towards him. He probably won more important journalistic awards in the course of his career than any other British or American reporter, but enunciations of what he wrote by hostile critics are perhaps a more distinguished mark of integrity. Who now remembers the long-forgotten British government minister who responded to Robert's sceptical but even-handed coverage of the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003 by describing Robert as a dupe of Saddam Hussein's regime? Inevitably, anybody reporting honestly on war and conflict will make enemies.